Hi, folks. I'm Mark Murphy, and this is TravelTube.com, the travel expert channel. That means you, the travel advisor, travel agent, whatever you want to call yourself. So, we're here to share your experiences and aggregate that experience in a single place, TravelTube.com. Now, what we do is we'll go out and we'll grab content that's on YouTube or TikTok or wherever and feature it. That's great. But a lot of you don't go out and shoot a bunch of content. So, one of the things you can do is you can just reach out to me. You can use my email, mark@traveltube.com, or you can go to traveltube.com and fill out the form saying you'd like to be interviewed and featured on the site. It's not high pressure. It's very low key. We have a conversation and you just share insights and let's say into that property in Maui you just visited, while I take that and I share that with all of your other colleagues. We have somebody who's maybe at a renovated sandals resort in Jamaica, and they can share what that's like and why they like it or don't like it, whatever their take is. You're not beholden to any supplier. You're not beholden to any destination. You're not beholden to me. But what I like to do is aggregate that knowledge base in one place, and that's the mission of TravelTube.com. So first, though, you got to follow us, okay? That means you got to sign up for the newsletter. You have to go and follow us on your Apple Podcast, Spotify. If you could follow us on all of them, it would be great, as well as Amazon Podcast. And then follow us on social media. We got a Facebook page. We're on TikTok, and we're on Instagram. Because the more people that follow us, the more visibility the site gets, which is more visibility for you, the travel advisor. So it is a win-win. Now, I don't have a marketing budget to go out. I don't own all these media assets. I don't know if you recall, but I'm the guy who created TravelPulse.com, Agent at Home Magazine, Vacation Agent Magazine, TravelAgentAcademy.com, HotelRewards.com, which is the guys who bought the business, never continued with it, and on and on. We also created this thing called Agent Studio. Yeah, they killed that after they bought the business. They just wanted to be a media and events business. I get it. We were in software and a bunch of other stuff. But those are the brands that came out of my head to support you, the travel agents, over 2 decades. And what we're trying to do is support you even more with video and these engaging interviews. Of course, we'd love to interview a lot of suppliers and destinations, but they have to pay for that privilege. You don't. So follow us, sign up for our newsletter, and that's all I got to say about that. Maybe I'll throw it in again just as a reminder in the middle. But in the meantime, let me give you sort of a rundown of what I'm going to cover today. So first up, is it time to start planning that winter ski or snowboard trip? The Farmer's Almanac's going to have some insights. I'm going to cover that. Privatize TSA. Well, just so you know, there's a bunch of airports that are already privately run with security. But despite it happening in a few airports, now this thing called TSA Gold Plus might accelerate that. I'm going to get into that. And as a person, I've been to somewhere around 80 countries in that neighborhood. Let's say between 70 and 90 countries. A lot of travel, millions and millions of air miles. And I'm going to share with you where I would love to go back to and where I would never want to go back again. And then I get into what I call the travel haves and have-nots and how the industry is evolving. And I'm going to give you an insight into where things are going. And the last thing I'm going to cover is the trend towards shorter and more frequent vacations. It is a trend, but it ain't new, folks. And I'm going to talk about that. So let's kick it off with, is it time to start planning that winter ski or snowboard trip? Well, according to the Farmer's Almanac, the places in the middle of the country, Colorado, Utah, etc., they've had some dry seasons and not a lot of natural snow. My kids are in Boulder, Colorado. They love to snowboard. It's a pretty crappy winter this past winter, but it looks like this coming winter is going to be a gangbuster. And so let me just share that insight right here. And I believe it was in, let's see, what was it in? It was in Travel and Leisure. Okay. A snowy cold winter is coming to much of the U.S., and these ski destinations could get the best snow. So obviously, if we get it in the Northeast, a lot of times it becomes ice. But the powder for those skiers and snowboarders is usually out west. And that's what they're expecting. They're expecting to see a lot of snow being dumped out there. And the challenge you run into when it's a bad ski season the previous year, the next year tends to be a little soft. And if you can book outside of the holiday period, and I know some of you can't because you got kids that are in school and you're really locked into those spots, you should be talking to a travel advisor if you're a consumer. And if you're a travel advisor, you should be going out to the people in your database after you do a little research and check out where the deals are, where some great spots are, and where they're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. That's what people want. They don't necessarily mind paying a lot of money. They just want to feel like they're getting more value than they're paying for. And you're the pros at this. This is what you all do for a living. So I would check it out, and I would read up on the Farmer's Almanac. And I might even take this travel and leisure article and post it on Facebook and other places with, are you a skier? Are you a snowboarder? Do your kids love it? Whatever you want to do as your opening. This may be one of the best winners in years to take advantage, but you better move quick, because as more people start looking at those dates, they do what's called revenue management. As hotels start filling up, the price starts going up. So take a look at that. Use that as a way to educate your clients. Use it via social media, but make yourself the call to action for the information. And you put a little plug in there. I've been specializing in ski and snowboard vacations for X. Or I can help you find the best fit for your family at the best price. Send me a message or comment something below, and I'll direct message you with what I think are some of the best deals out there. And be prepared to deliver on that as you do it, okay? Because you don't want to say, yeah, and then people DM you and a week or 2 weeks go by and then you finally get back to them. You got to be on top of it. This is called marketing. And the beauty of this marketing is it is free. You pay nothing. It's social media. Now, one of the things you can do is to go find potentially new customers for your Facebook page. You can post that, and then you can boost it. And you can determine what parameter you want. Do you want likes? Do you want comments? What is it that you want out of that boosting? And you can do this on TikTok. You can do it everywhere. As a side note, I posted a video of my kid playing one of his original songs. I boosted it, and I got him almost 20,000 views in a couple of days. It doesn't change the world, but it gets more eyeballs on your stuff. And even if they don't take action right now, you basically are hitting them and asking them to follow your page, and you're asking them, to direct message you or leave a comment so that you can handle any inquiries, and then just make sure you're on top of it. Now, do as I say, not necessarily as I do, because people will message me through Facebook. I don't personally check it regularly. I am not selling travel. I am not looking to move product or anything else. So I get there when I get there, and that's how I operate. But if you want to book more travel, that's one of the things you should do. And another thing you should look at is the net rates on hotels through the different bed banks, and see what you can get on a net rate compared to what the published market rate is. There's going to be a lot of room in between. And so instead of earning 8, 10, 12, 14% commission, you as the travel agent can many times have a lower price point that's the published, best rate guarantee that's out there, while making a lot more money for yourself. Because if you don't make a profit, and that profit has to be decent, then you don't stay in business. And there's nothing wrong with making a profit. And there's nothing wrong with making 20 or 30% commission on a trip if you're net delivering the value and you're below the published fares that they're going to see if they try to shop you, which most people are going to do that. They're going to fact check what you're telling them. You make money on the transfers. I remember going out to Vail. We did the SUV transfers with the driver. We did that back and forth. We booked in Denver for a couple of nights on our return trip, and we booked a condo vacation out there, and it was fantastic. We had a 3-bedroom condo, right? You could basically walk out. You're right at the slopes. fantastic. But I don't ski because I've had 5 surgeries on just my right knee and then 3 surgeries on my hip. I'm not getting back on skis. I've skied in the past. I've never snowboarded. And despite all my kids' pleas to take it up, I'm like, yeah, I have an orthopedic frequent surgery card. Yeah, I don't want to use any more points. Okay. I'm done. Whereas Sister Lawton would say, former Irish known Sister Lawton, she'd say, Mark, you're not done. Turkeys are done. People are finished. And that's your grammar lesson for the day, in addition to some insights into the Farmer's Almanac and skiing this season that's approaching. All right. What else is going on? Well, let me get rid of this and let me share with you TSA. I mentioned at the top, TSA, there are some places where private security takes care of getting you through security, et cetera. There's about 20 airports right now that are manned exclusively by private security, but they're overseen by the federal government. And what the administration wants to do is create this thing called TSA Gold Plus, where they can bring in private contractors to help in airports that are currently manned by TSA agents. And what they can do, and I'll show you where the pushback is. That pushback is by the folks that are union, because TSA is government unions. And my take on government workers, I don't think government workers should be able to unionize. That's just me. It's being paid by tax dollars, and one of the things that people don't understand, in my opinion, is we were run privately prior to 9/11. Then it became government controlled. And I would love for someone to tell me one industry that the government gets involved in where it's a better value for the taxpayers and the spending, and where it's better execution. Outside of the military, let's leave the military off. There's a lot of fraud and stuff with the Pentagon and $1 trillion budget. I don't want to go there. But at the same time, we did this very successfully for decades. They shifted, like a lot of things, after 9/11 and those attacks. But now we're seeing that they're trying to move back. And here's why you, as a traveler or a travel advisor, should like this. Number one, the cost savings. So that's number one. Would it be cheaper than having taxpayer dollars go to fund this? Usually the private sector manages expenses and things a hell of a lot better because they need to maintain a level of profitability, et cetera. But they can't have it not be safe, just like it was pre-2001 when it was safe. They can't cut corners on that. And that's why the government will oversee it and make sure that it's staffed properly, et cetera. Machines are there, the whole 9 yards. No different than what the government workers do. But here's where it really benefits the travelers. That shutdown we had where they wanted to shut down DHS and ICE, which had no impact, honestly, on ICE because it's funded through 2029. That was the main goal. But it created massive headaches for travelers because you didn't have people showing up, because even though the pay was going to be deferred, when it gets to 30, 60, 90, 100 days, people will start checking out. Some people will quit and take other jobs. Even though they're going to get that money eventually, it doesn't matter. They got to pay their bills. So having private security there can help offset that and help minimize disruptions from government shutdowns, because we know the politics, and I don't care if you're on the right or the left, you're Democrat or Republican, they all suck. Okay. They all suck. And I think people are starting to wake up to that reality. Now, with that said, I think if you are a government worker, back again, should you be able to unionize and collectively bargain against the government? I don't think you should. But again, I don't make these decisions. But at the same time, what they're doing is they're suing to get release of records and FOIA requests, et cetera. And what does that mean? Now the government's got to use money to defend a lawsuit because of a union lawsuit against the government that's actually All right, I'm done. I'm done. End of the day, I love the fact that more and more airports are going to have private screening, private TSA, and ideally this becomes a trend and we eliminate the government workers and we shift them to private contractors, and it saves the government money. Let the airlines and the airports and everybody else and the passengers fund that, and don't worry about government shutdowns going forward. You guys with me? I hope you are. I think that would be a great move. Now moving on to my personal travels is as Murphy Travels, which I get mistaken for a travel agent, which is kind of funny, but it is what it is. I've never been a travel agent. I've never sold travel. I've never worked in the travel industry. I owned a travel media company reporting on all things travel globally. And at one point, I don't think it's there anymore because you got to invest to keep it up. TravelPulse.com was the largest travel news site in the world. It's now owned by North Star Travel Media. I have no idea what their numbers are, but it still puts out a lot of news. And from my travels, because we would go all over the world, either to shoot content or to go to conferences or whatever it may have been. And so I've been to a lot of places. I haven't been to Antarctica yet, but there are places that are magical, that are amazing. And in some cases, they're driving distance, like being in Death Valley, not in the summer, but camping there, let's say in December, like I did, sort of that shoulder season. One of the most amazing things is it's freaking pitch black and you've never seen stars like you see. You could literally just climb up on a rock, lay down, look up at the sky, and be blown away. It's spectacular. That's like a little gas money. Buy a $150 tent, go do that. That's a amazing trip. And then you can travel during the day and check out the painted rocks and all sorts of other things in there. And then if you want, go into Vegas and lose your shirt at the gaming tables, because guess what? If you gamble and you gamble regularly, you will lose. But then again, I'm not a gambler, but my grandmother won the World Series of Poker back in 1981. Look her up, Ruth Godfrey. I hope I got the date right. Godfrey. And she was a great grandma at the time, and she won the World Series of Poker when it was separate women and separate men. It wasn't combined, and the pots were nowhere near that. But in today's dollars, she probably won somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000, adjusted for inflation, because this was what, like 45 years ago? Long time ago. Now, with that said, I would go back to Death Valley as part of a broader thing. But overseas, where I've gone, where would I not want to go back to? Moscow. Moscow to me was, and not because of the buildings, everything, that was pretty fascinating. You go into the subways and they've got chandeliers hanging in the subways, and the subways are modeled differently. And you feel like you could put a bunch of tables out and have a 5-star restaurant as the trains are going back and forth. Because, excuse me, I got to take a little sip of water here. Because they're just literally spectacular. There's no crime. They're clean as can be. It literally looks like someone's been down there with one of those long dusters and dusting the chandeliers. Everything looks spectacular. Been there, done that. But what I didn't like about Moscow was I felt like the men in Moscow, they just had this permanent scowl on their face. And I think maybe if I lived there, I'd probably be the same. And it just seemed like the people were just miserable, like just miserable. And I have zero desire to ever go back. Been there, done that. And there's plenty of other places that I've done that. But if there's, and feel that way. But if there's one place, if you had to maybe pull it out of the air, it's Moscow. Now, where would I go back to? There's a lot of places I'd go back to. I spent a week in Bora Bora. That was amazing. I stayed at the St. Regis. Amazing. But it's like a $35,000 trip for 2 people for a week, if you count the airfare. That might be tough. Poland. Poland, I went to Krakow and experienced the salt mines just outside of Krakow, big salt mine. And I also went and saw the devastation brought by the Germans through Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II. I think that those are the kinds of things that you have to see in person and experience. But I didn't get out and see a lot of Poland. I only saw a limited amount. Love the people, love the destination. I think Poland is a hidden gem that people don't think about. And just to put it in perspective, I enjoyed Prague. Prague was great. But if I had to put Prague up against Krakow and go into Poland, I preferred Krakow and Poland. Some people might disagree with me, but I think others would agree if they've been. And if you haven't been, definitely do it. You can hop around Europe so easily. My nephew who lives in Amsterdam, he was just in Greece because for a few dollars, you can fly pretty much anywhere. It's still really, really cheap, intra-European travel. And another place where my heritage comes from, in part, Ireland. I've been to Ireland, but I was only there for a few nights. And I wrote about it in my book, Travel Unscripted. And I think it was either a section or a chapter. It was called Emergency Rear End Response. Yeah. That's because I went out and drank way too much Guinness and had a little bit of a stomach issue the next day, and we were playing golf. So here, I'll describe my experience going to the pharmacy. Unlike going into a big CVS, the pharmacies are very small. And you go in and there's a counter and you got to tell the person what you want. And I don't know what they called it there, but I was trying to explain what I needed. And I was at this neighborhood pharmacy and there were several people behind me in line. And I had to wait for a couple of people in front. So I get up to the counter and I was like, yeah, so, I'm having some stomach stuff and, oh, yeah. Oh, you're having stomach stuff. Oh, okay. And I said, yeah, in the US, we've got something called Imodium AD. That's kind of what I need. I'm trying to keep it quiet because I got people behind me. I don't want to know my personal business, right? So the guy's like, oh, I've got exactly what you need. Here you go. This is my attempt at an Irish accent. And he pulls out a box from behind him. He's like, so now what you want to do is you want to take two of them after your first episode. And if you have another episode, you want to take another one, and that should stop you up just fine. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I did make it to the golf course because I was with a guy. We were going to play around, and I did have a rear end explosion, and it was one of several that morning. Sorry, a little TMI, but hey, I'm telling you the way it is. This happens when you travel. And then by the time I had that last episode and had additional, now I had 3 pills in me. I don't think I went for like 3 days. So there you go. But man, I was just like, could you just give me that package and let me get the frick out of here before all the ladies in the neighborhood are like, oh, look at the chap. He's got the runs. Is that what you say in Ireland? I don't even know. I don't even know what you say in Ireland, but I was really embarrassed. But I survived. But it was pretty funny at the time. The Irish accent, the guy holding it up, pointing, explaining it in detail. And I was like, oh, for the love of God, where's the self-service, folks? Why do I have to deal with this? Anyway, I thought it was kind of fun. But I'd love to go back to Ireland and actually really explore all of Ireland. And I think that would be fantastic because I'd like to know where my grandparents, grew up and go see the town or village where they grew up, where, they went to the pub. I love the music. I love the people. I know it would be fantastic. So that's definitely on my list to return. And it's pretty much places where if I went there and was working, meaning we're shooting content, or I was just doing a stopover on the way to a conference in Glasgow at the time, I didn't really get the full flavor. And that's where I want to go and kind of embed myself. And now that I'm kind of retired, but still doing this, I have more time and the ability to not have to be, pressed. I can go for a 2 or 3 week trip, no problem, except for my little black lab, Ben. Yeah, he would have separation anxiety because he's my buddy. He's like a barnacle. He's always attached to me. Some of you have seen him on these podcasts or on some of the videos and some of the stuff I post on TikTok, on TravelTube, etc. And again, maybe it's a good time to say, follow us on your favorite social media. We're TravelTube.com or TravelTube.com on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. And I'll share some of those other trips and other personal types of situations where, you know, whether it's dancing on the beach here in Long Beach Island, New Jersey, because literally every night there's a different concert, or whether it's sharing an experience I had 10 years ago in Ecuador or wherever I happen to be. All right, that's enough about me. Let's get into the people I call the travel haves and have-nots, and where the trend is going from this standpoint. So one thing you have to understand is basically over 4 million baby boomers this year will reach the age of 65. Some have already retired a little bit early because of health reasons or whatever. And this is why, okay? So if you have to retire at 60, 61, 62 because your health is failing, you've worked your ass off all your life and you saved up, you did all the right things, and then all of a sudden you can't take advantage because your health has failed. So for those folks out there that are holding off, don't hold off. You can't spend it if you're dead. Go out and enjoy your life. Be fiscally responsible. You know, don't go into a bunch of debt, but basically count your pennies, cut your costs where you can, skip the Starbucks latte, do that for a month. That's $150. Do that for a year. That's $1,800. You can do a vacation for $1,800, folks, especially if there's two of you, that's $3,600. There's a lot of things you can do for a vacation, especially if you pick and choose the right places and times to go and you mix it up. Okay. Some people will do a luxury trip, but they'll only do a trip every 2 or 3 years, but they'll save for 2 or 3 years to really do it right. Others are more into the decompression part of it, and they will take shorter trips. And I'll get into this in my final segment, in particular with cruises. They'll take shorter trips closer to home to kind of get out and just relax and decompress. So they're lowering their stress level and they're breaking up their work life and getting a little better work-life balance. But here's what's happening in the travel industry. Where the growth is in the travel industry is in the, I would say, the premium and luxury segments. And a lot of that is due to the proliferation of baby boomers and the fact that they control about 70% of the wealth in the country. And because they control all that wealth, some are better off than others, obviously. But because they have that, if they stayed healthy, they've got 20 to 25 years where they can travel. Now, towards the end, they'll need a little help. But my 88-year-old mother-in-law goes to the concerts on the beach and she's dancing for like 2 straight hours. I'm sitting in my chair, enjoying the music, moving a little to it, and having a cocktail, a little bourbon maybe. I'm good at watching them dance, and I'm just happy to sit back and enjoy the music. But she's going at 88, and she just did karaoke last night. So you may live a very long life, and if you've made it to the fact that you're retiring at 65 and your health is pretty good at this time, then you probably got a pretty long runway. You know, the Grim Reaper is probably not going to come for you if all goes well. And you never know. I got cancer at one point. I got past it. Did it change my life? Absolutely. Do I still have after effects of the treatment? Absolutely. But I don't let it stop me from doing what I love and getting out and exploring the world. I've been doing a lot of it in the U.S., and despite the high prices of some of the U.S. destinations, I've talked about Las Vegas pricing itself out of the market. You know, a steak for $80. No, I don't care how much money I have. I'm not buying a steak for $80. But I think they're starting to recognize that, and they're starting to pull back on that. So they realize they can't just live on the uber wealthy that's willing to drop $400 or $500 for 2 people to have dinner with a bottle of wine. You got to open the market for more. But there is a big gap, and the gap's getting wider and wider. And I think that opens opportunities for those budget brands and those mid-tier brands to go after this marketplace and drive up their occupancy rates and drive up their profits on volume, because people will spend money. But when you've got to drop $300 to stay at a Hampton Inn off the road, yeah, you know what? that isn't going to get it done. And what I don't understand about some of those brands is when it's 11 o'clock at night and somebody wants to book a hotel, why you don't try to capture that traveler by, you know what, saying, all right, you called me direct. Here's what I can do. But more often than not, I find it's like, oh, no, that's the rate, $300 plus taxes. You're $335 or whatever the hell it works out to, depending on the state you're in. That isn't going to get it done. But if you're in a destination that can cater to some tourism dollars, you look at those Thursday, Friday, Saturday stays, and you create packages that drive a ton of value. And if you're a hotel that has a restaurant and a bar, and you can also sell them some activities, you can package it all together and make really good money and get people that will do an impulse purchase to do a quick getaway an hour or 2 hours from home. And yeah, your ADR, your average daily rate, might take a slight hit, but at the same time, you're going to be going at 90, 95% occupancy in a town where, let's say, it drops off on the weekends. So you got to get more creative. And I think there's a big market for this, because if everything is either don't travel or it's luxury or super premium, there's hundreds of thousands of hotels that don't fit that. And that's your opportunity. Which leads me towards what is being positioned now as the trend towards shorter. And I'd probably get rid of this because I'm still showing that if you're watching on the video. I kept the TSA thing up, even though I went to my personal travels and travels have nots. So for you guys listening, you didn't see that, but the producer that I don't have, that's not talking in my ear saying, dude, take it off or do it themselves. Yeah, that didn't happen. So ignore that. Ignore that. All right. So the trend towards shorter and more frequent vacations is not a new trend. Back in the 1990s, that was a trend. People wanted to travel less than 3 hours of travel time, closer to home, and they wanted to take more frequent trips. So this is not new, but I found this article from let me just pull it up here. It was an article from, where is she? Where is she? Hang on a second. Here's an article. I think this was on USA Today. And here it is. 57 cruises later, one influencer says the 4-day trip is the only one worth booking. Okay. Let's talk journalism for a second. Do you believe that headline? That the person took 57 cruises and the 4-day trip is the only one worth booking? I respectfully disagree. Respectfully disagree. And the article goes on with this travel influencer. Let me just get the name correct because I want to give her credit. You can follow her. Her name is Kat Patcher, Pacher, and she goes by @Kat Patcher, Katpacher, and she shares why she thinks Gen Z and millennials are opting for this. Okay. If you're working and you want to take shorter trips closer to home, etc., a cruise can be a great option. Years ago, following 9/11, this thing called home port cruising became very popular. And what the cruise lines tried to do is position cruise ships all around the United States so that a majority of the population was within 6 hours drive time to a cruise ship. And for some of us, my full-time home is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There's a lot of ships because I can go up to Cape Canaveral, I can go down to Miami, or I can go out to Port Everglades, and I have a lot of options. I've got short cruises, longer cruises, luxury, budget, trips to nowhere, literally. I can take a ferry across to Bimini, whatever. I've got a lot of options. And the closest cruise port to me is like 20 minutes away. If I have to drive down to Miami, as long as there's no traffic, it's 40, 45 minutes. Traffic, who knows? Who knows? But you have these options. You can definitely take advantage of these options. And where I disagree with the article, it's not a new trend. People that came before Gen Z and millennials I'm talking 30 years ago. Those would be baby boomers that are the ages of some of the Gen Zs right now. Those folks and millennials, those folks had the same trend was taking place. And I don't think that trend's going to change. But what I think is interesting about the short vacations, which this article gets into about the shorter vacations, is if you wanted to do like a 3 or 4 night bachelorette party, well, basically, or you want to have, 4 singles go out and take a vacation. Basically, the price is X amount of dollars. If you want your own room, it's a little more depending on the cruise ship because they have the single supplement. But you can basically share rooms, share cabins. Anybody who wants to book an inside cabin, if you want a balcony, everybody pays their fair share. You can buy drink packages if you want to do that. No one has to worry about taking their wallet out and, hey, I bought the last round, you got to get the next. Everybody does their own thing. Everybody uses their own drink package, whichever fits with them. And some people, my buddy Joe Pike, he's handling something on Facebook right now. It's the Sober Travel Collective, with an agency that's pushing sober travel. Because if you've not been paying attention, drinking is way down in the US. And I'm not exactly sure what's driving it. Maybe it's health reasons. Maybe it's everyone drank way too much during COVID lockdowns, whatever it happens to be. But that's a niche. And so you don't have to do the drink package. If you're not a drinker, you don't have to pay for all your friends to be able to drink with the open bars, right? And that's where it really fits well with these like small groups. So if you're a travel advisor, what are you doing to engage these people and make sure they call you to plan it? Because it costs them nothing to use you. And it's a great niche that if you're going to handle bachelorette parties, bachelor parties, obviously weddings at sea, whatever the group is, that group then has all the individual travelers that are going to take additional trips throughout the year. And now you've got a built-in referral network, if you would, by dealing with that one point person to put it together. You do all the work, you get paid the commission, and everyone has a great trip because they didn't have to do jack. All you had to do is send them a link. They click on the link, they make the payment. You're good. You're good. And for about 50% more work than booking just a couple on a cruise, you could book a bachelorette group of 10 people and make 5 to 10 times more than you were going to make doing it the other way. So that gives you 10 potential new leads. And if they're singles and they've got a significant other or a husband or a wife, now you've got upwards of 20 people. And then you've got their connected family because maybe they want to bring like I did years ago when my daughter was born. She was about 4 months old. She was the youngest kid on a celebrity cruise to Bermuda. And we brought both grandmas on board and we had built-in babysitting. So we paid for the grandmas to come on board and it worked really well until we got to international waters and the casino opened up. And my mother, being the offspring of grandma who won the World Series of Poker, it was in her blood to gamble. So she's like, what are you doing? I'm not going to babysit. I'm going to the casino. I'm going to go gamble. Holy crap. So my mother-in-law did most of the heavy lifting because she wasn't a gambler. She wasn't a drinker. But my mom wanted to live in the casino. So luckily when we got to port, they couldn't have the casino open and we were able to get some babysitting from the other half. But anyway, you get the idea, right? You have all these opportunities and you just got to take advantage of it. So with that said, I hope you have a great week and I will see you next week here on TravelTube.com. Again, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. Don't forget to opt in and follow us on your favorite podcast apps as well as on social media. We're everywhere. And the more you follow us, the higher we go in ranking, the more consumers discover us, and therefore we expose more of your expertise to leads, if you would, new customers who will reach out to you based on your expertise and what you're sharing. But I can't share your expertise if you don't support the platform. That's all I got to say. I'm checking out.